Hey, everybody, welcome to this episode of Think Business Live. Looking forward to talking with Greg Selkoe, CEO of XSET.com, trailblazer in modern entrepreneurial ventures, co founder and CEO of XSET. You lead the company's vision of creating a gaming lifestyle brand and media company that redefines the digital landscape, connecting with the physical world. All right. I love that. I've been looking forward to talking with you. Because I think this is my kids. My son is a senior in college. My daughter's going to be a freshman. She was varsity tennis, and we just went to the award ceremony at the city council, and they had the e-gaming there, which they have now made a varsity sport. And I always remember thinking when my son would come home and hop on video games with all of his friends and my nephew and etc. I remember thinking, wow, they're gonna invent something. They could invent something that's gonna, change the world. And so I was always kind of very pro the gaming. It was camaraderie. Sometimes my son would come home actually early, and they would all go home early and hop on and play. It was great. So, but I want to kind of talk to you and dive in a little bit about when you talk about redefining the digital landscape and connecting the physical world. Because I'm 52, I'm not sure how old you were, but we had Atari, we had ColecoVision. It was limited, and then we went outside and did our stuff outside and played. And so, what does the redefining of the digital landscape look like? Because it's with VR. And everything else surrounding VR, it just seems to be getting like almost so real and so much more intense. So what does redefining mean?
Sure. Yeah, first, thanks for having me on. I'm super excited to talk to you. There's a lot there. I'd say, when what we're kind of redefining what it means to be a gaming brand or have a digital lifestyle. And kind of on the first sort of fundamental basis is we are part of a gaming culture, right? So we're not approaching it as an esports team. Well, esports is a big part of gaming culture. Most people who game are not actually super into esports. There's
Yeah.
millions who are, but gaming, there's 3 billion gamers worldwide, right? They're all different backgrounds, all different races, all almost 45% of them are women. So everyone games nowadays. So the idea of just the gamer in the basement, kind of playing esports or competitive gaming for 12 hours at a time,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people who serve that audience. We serve everyone else, and that means what we call the casual gamer. Uh, by redefining what it means is that we look at gaming the same way people looked at skateboarding or punk rock or hip hop. Gaming spawned this culture, and gaming intersects with music, fashion, art, entertainment, lifestyle. Kids meet friends all over the world. Your son was probably playing with kids down the street, but also
Yeah.
probably playing with people in London or Bangkok or Toronto or you name it. Because you can literally and gaming's a social thing now. It's not where someone's playing Atari on their own and there's no connectivity. Almost always you're playing with other people and talking to them in real time.
Yeah.
However, I think one of the things you mentioned that's sort of part of our ethos is the idea that gaming is something that kind of defines part of your life and is an exciting way for you to discover music or fashion trends or meet people, or socialize. However, it's not everything, right? And so the folks that we kind of target, which is a large group of folks, we do a lot of stuff offline as well. We have events, we have gaming lounges and nightclubs. We've done stuff with the NFL, with the Red Sox. So we're bringing gaming culture to real life. And I think, as you said, gaming's really becoming incredibly realistic and, becoming, there will be movement as part of gaming as it continues to evolve. But right now, there's not a lot of movement and there's not a lot of getting outside. So I think for us, it's like, having a rich lifestyle where you're both gaming, but you're also into sports, you're into music, you're into fashion, you could be into pop art, digital art, anime, cosplay, whatever. And those all have a digital component now. But we want you to also be someone who's active in the real world and kind of brings the same attitude that you bring to your gaming life to your real life.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about that, because I think it's fascinating. I love everything that you're talking about. Um, I want to talk about building a brand a little bit, because building a brand is it's really hard. I mean, to get it tight and to get it clean and to get the messaging in sync with your audience. And so, if we were to talk about kind of, how to build a brand, I think one of the very first steps is, knowing your audience, and in this case, maybe not what their pain is, but what their needs are and what they want. And so, kind of just walk me through, if you can, in the Think community, how you kind of went about, because you've got a phenomenal background in growing companies. I may be pronouncing this right, but you're the first president, FaZe Clan. Am I pronouncing that right?
FaZe
FaZe
Clan,
Clan.
yeah.
Taking it from
Close.
zero to 36 million. I mean, your track record is huge. And so, what are the first steps to building that brand and then getting people to actually connect emotionally to that brand?
Yeah, I mean, so my first company was a company called Karmaloop. It still exists. It's 24 years old now. And that's where I perfected a lot of that. It was an e-commerce, or is an e-commerce business. Did over $1 billion in retail sales under my tenure, and we built that business in a very grassroots way. At the time, the only sort of social media was really, well, in the very beginning there was Facebook, and there was Friendster and MySpace, which, rest in peace, the two of them. And
I
and
forgot
then
about
Twitter
Friends
came out.
until you just said that.
Yeah.
I completely forgot it even existed until you just said that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's ancient history, but it was groundbreaking for its time. So, and then eventually, Twitter, and then by the end, IG was there. Twitch probably was born sometime around that. It was, not big at that point. We did actually live streaming at Karmaloop in 2010. We used a company called Livestream. They're the only ones you could live stream with, so that just shows you how early we were. I mean, Twitch was originally Justin TV, which was just one guy walking around with streaming his experience, and evolved into Twitch. But anyways, long story short is really the way that you build audience, in a lifestyle business, which we consider ourselves one, and really FaZe Clan was one as well. FaZe Clan, was the 800-pound gorilla in the space for quite a long time. It kind of, when I left, it was like the world leading gaming esports brand. I left to start XSET, and then 3 years later they went public. They had some problems, but when we left, we were on top of the. When we, meaning myself and my partner, who was also at FaZe, I have a number of employees who used to work at FaZe. We left; it was on top of the world, and part of the reason they were on top of the world, was different than Karmaloop, in that at Karmaloop, I was part of the culture. I was at the age of our audience at the time. We were growing it by being authentic. FaZe Clan, I did not create the brand. We turned it into a business, but these guys who were the original content creators making YouTube videos and streaming were very authentic. The fans loved them. They felt like they knew them. And when you have that, as you've seen with influencer, which I think is projected to be like $400 billion in revenue, global revenue, the influencer creator economy, people will buy stuff, they will pay for stuff, they will pay for tickets, because they want to be close to this group of people that they're following, and authentically that group is interacting the way that they interact with their fan base. So, with XSET, again, we got to build it, not sort of kind of inherit it and then turn it into a business, which is what we did at FaZe Clan. Because my partner actually was with me at Karmaloop. He was with me at FaZe Clan. He was with me at he's with me at XSET. He's my co-founder at XSET. So like at XSET, we really, part of what we wanted XSET to be was, this gaming lifestyle sort of media brand that reached millions of people, and kind of did things that were really cool and interesting, and helped kind of organize and define their lifestyle, the fans and the audience. And the first thing we did is that, look, gaming is this huge phenomenon, right? And it's never going away. It's just only going to get more digital. And when I say everyone games, that means NFL athletes, that means celebrities, that means actors, that means they all love gaming. So the first thing we did as a brand was, kind of set our ethos, which we wanted to be welcoming for everyone. We wanted to be much more leaning into pop culture, this intersection that I just talked about. That stuff resonated. It was clear we had product market fit. We launched the company on the cover of the style section of the New York Times, and then a bunch of follow press kind of trickled out all the endemic brands that cover this kind of stuff. And so we got inundated by kids basically were like, yo, like finally there's a brand for me. Like I didn't feel connected to a lot of these other brands that were kind of in the similar space or whatever. I don't know if it looks like I'm shaking the table, so I apologize. But then but then we had to kind of like supercharge that, right? And so we basically, because this wasn't our first company, and because myself and my co-founders and had done a lot of stuff in culture and lifestyle, we were able to go to NFL athletes. We got 6 guys from the NFL to invest into the business. We got people like Nigel Sylvester, who's like the most famous BMX rider in the world. We got Sway Lee and Ozuna and T Grizzly. These are huge hip hop artists to invest capital in the business and to join the business and help promote and tell people, yo, this is like a brand or a place where I want to be part of. And these guys are all authentically gamers. Like we didn't go to LeBron James, not that we could have gotten him anyways.
Right.
His son Bronny is a big gamer and actually was associated with FaZe Clan for a while, but LeBron's not authentically a gamer. He doesn't really game. So if we were to get him, yes, it would be a big coup and it would look amazing, but and certainly we'd take an investment from him. But putting him as a forward-facing face of the business, it wouldn't have rung true or felt authentic. It'd be like, yo, you're just going to LeBron because he's the biggest basketball player in the world. Where the folks that we went to, a lot of them were huge. Like Ozuna's the biggest, probably one of the biggest Latin artists in the world. Sway Lee is definitely one of the biggest hip hop artists. But they also authentically gamed. And so when they did stuff with us, it was natural. When we did events, we did gaming related events, they'd come and perform. We did videos when we launched merchandise like this. And by the way, talking about old video games from the past era, this is the gun from ColecoVision Duck Hunt that we reappropriated on a shirt. So ColecoVision was probably the third system.
Yeah. That's great. I love that story. So, I mean, just to kind of recap a couple of things, you go in with an intent. People feel connected. Finally, you created something, and then layer in ambassadors that are authentic in alignment with your brand, and no trying to create it or push it. You're going down the path where everybody's in alignment with your mission. Everybody's in line with the passion because of their intrinsic passion. It seems to me like you really, I think a lot of times companies and brands get it wrong because what they intrinsically set out to do, they end up conforming, and because they don't have the patience or many other reasons. So kudos to you. I think it's great that as we're sitting here talking today, you're intrinsically connecting with everybody's kind of passion for the industry and for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think 100% you nailed it.
Yeah.
And I think it's you got to kind of swim upstream sometimes, right? Like we really we look at ourselves. Is the connection okay? Because I'm getting a little fuzz.
Right. No, it's perfect. It's perfect.
Good. So like we definitely are not, there's no one really like us in the space right now, in that we are much more about this brand and this media company than we are about esports teams or we have one amazing Fortnite team that's great, but really we're about like creating culture, and we're more analogous to a Barstool Sports or a Bleacher Report or an Overtime or even Outside, which is a huge $2 billion company that creates content, sells product, has ambassadors who are mountain climbers and other folks. We're doing the same thing in gaming, and no one else is really like. There's a lot of successful models making that are north of $1 billion in valuation in niches. albeit big niches like the Tennis Channel or Outside or some of the Mr. Beast in a lot of ways started out as this individual person, but he's become this media property.
Yeah.
Is much bigger. He's creating chocolate bars. He's creating shows for Netflix. Those are the models that we actually feel close to. But as you said, you got to have like perseverance and sort of, because of one, we've had a lot of doubt that model is going to work. I think a lot of people projected our demise. I mean, we're 4 years old now, certainly not out of the woods yet. We got a long way to go because we intend to build this to, north of $1 billion youth media gaming company. Throughout that time, you've got to stay authentic. You can't do things. It's okay to make mistakes. I found that out at Carmel. As long as you're like, "Yo, we made a mistake," right? When you try to fool your audience and they're like, "Why did you do this?" or "Why did you work with that?" You got to be willing to tell them like, "Oh, you guys weren't feeling that? Okay, we get it." Like not like, "Yo, we'd like try to sweep it." And I think people respect that because we're trying to do something that's very hard, which is build a culture, a community around this brand and reach people through media to tell our stories. Basically, we're telling stories about gaming, about lifestyle, about music, and there's a gaming thread that runs through it, but there's stuff that we're doing that barely touches gaming. Like we have a cooking show we're developing with one of our talent named Cash Nasty, famous NBA 2K player, but we don't touch on gaming really at all in the actual content that we're putting together because he's also authentically loves cooking. Right. And that came exactly as you said from the fact that he loved cooking authentically and he was making like videos on his YouTube channel about cooking because he liked it.
Yeah.
We got like 60 million views across all his cooking content. So we're like, all right, there's something here to do something more. He'll talk about gaming. Gaming will be sort of unsaid that he's a gamer and that's what makes him famous. But we're looking at it as an extension into culture and lifestyle. And you have to do that with like real passion. Or if it feels like you're like, "Oh, well, I just picked a demographic, there's nothing really there, and we're going to just spin something up that looks like something else and hope people like it," you're not going to be successful ultimately. Even if you have a ton of money. We've been undercapitalized the whole time, and part of the reason we've been able to do so much of this strictly on word of mouth, strictly on these quote unquote ambassadors supporting us, associating the brand with other brands that mean something in this space.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said. What you just said, undercapitalized. I'm 52. When I was 23, out of college, I started an internet company with my brother and a buddy, and my dad gave us $5,000 to put in a bank account so we would at least have a balance. We never used it, but we were always undercapitalized. But we had the message, the passion, everything we needed to do. And I'm not saying this to impress, just to impress upon what you said, that there were a lot of other companies that were well-funded that went out of business, and we grew to over 300 people, 300 clients and 24 people, and ended up selling our companies to the largest internet professional service firm at the time in the world. And again, I'm not saying it to impress, just to impress upon the idea that it was just our grit. It was our grit and how we kind of always, and here's my question I want to move to is, it was our grit and our complete obsession with being ahead of real time and in real time of the pulse of the market. So we could make adjustments that were like hairline adjustments where other people weren't paying attention. And so to me, I always have thought like, and I see it in, I'm a coach. This is my business, the John Dwasson Experience. I'm a business coach, but I have another business called Launch 3, where it's a platform for life, building your brand and your career, and everything is micro courses, like 1 to 5 minutes, and it's phenomenal. My business partner and I, though,
I got to check that out.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you more about it. But
first of all, that is
we talk every single day, and we're always listening and pivoting. And so we don't have it's our own capital, but that's how we stay ahead. So I want to know, what are the microfibers of your grit and how you stay ahead being undercapitalized? Because I think it's possible. I just want to say one more thing. I think a lot of times people think we need all this money, we need all this thing, and da-da-da-da-da. I think go as long as you can without getting money. Go ahead. I'll let you speak now.
Yes. Yeah. So first of all, that is impressive. And I think there's a lot of similarities to the story you just told. We've been able to raise money over the last 4 years that most folks wouldn't have been able to raise. I want to be clear. It's not that we're working with nothing. And I think, it's been a very tough time to raise money, particularly in
the
my
market.
industry where most of the competitive brands have all failed or really got hit and their valuations dropped a lot because they were esports. And while we're very different, we were always conflated with those guys instead of the guys I mentioned that I want to be conflated with, that I want to comp against. So it was a challenge. But I mean, I think grit is absolutely the grit and perseverance are the absolute requirements of entrepreneurship. So I went through the Y Combinator program out in Silicon Valley. And it's basically like, the most prestigious, what it is, but the most prestigious sort of incubator for entrepreneurs. It's very, very hard to get into. And Airbnb, Uber, I mean, like Google Mail, like everything came out of them. So it's so amazing. And, and one of the, actually my cohort leader was Michael Siebold, who became the CEO. He was the founder of Twitch, one of the 4 founders. And so, but one of the things that they teach there, you think that you're going to go in there and they're going to talk about things that are very super sophisticated. They're basically like, listen, this is fucking hard. You're going to have to work your ass off. You can't give up. It's going to be lonely as hell.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to doubt you. You're going to get a million doors slammed in your face. And you got to get through it. He said, it's all about the people you have around you and the team, right? They used to say, like, there's 3 reasons you invest in a company: team, team, and team.
Yeah.
Give me a bad idea and a good team, or give me a great idea and a terrible team, and I'll bet on the bad idea every time because they'll pivot and figure it out.
Correct.
Right. And so I think the reality is that everyone's got great ideas. This idea that like, I thought of the sticky note. Well, you didn't make it, right? Like, it's simple. It's a piece of paper with some glue on it that basically doesn't leave a mark. But to actually make it and get people to see it, it doesn't happen overnight. This has been 4 years of constantly getting punched in the face, constantly being doubted, and going back and figuring out how to keep moving the ball forward. And now we're in a position where we're going to raise $30 million in a Series B. There's a lot of strategic folks that need to understand gaming, need to understand youth culture. Every consumer brand in America, every sports league in America needs to get the next generation of fans or the next generation of consumers. And if you don't understand gaming, and if you can't reach them authentically through gaming, because that's the primary focus of a lot of people's, sort of leisure activity, you're not going to get them. So you need someone like XSET. But it took time to get to the point where we now get inbound calls from big consumer electronic brands and other folks where we were knocking on the door before, and they're like, well, we just did a buy with esports. It failed. All they did was put our logo on a jersey and like do an ad on the, underneath the Twitch stream. We're like, no, we're doing something totally different. This is interactive. There's real life stuff. We're going to help you, insert you into this cultural movement of gaming lifestyle. And they didn't get it, but now they get it. Now we're one of the few folks that they can come to that has the sophistication, first of all, to be able to talk their language, but actually the authenticity to not bring something that's garbage or the trash that the kids won't feel to our audience. And we won't do it. No matter how big a check you write us, if we're not going to put our name on something we don't think is cool, or at least give us the, that we think is cool. And if it's kind of cool, we need to still have the autonomy to do it our way to our audience. But it takes time, years. Now it's been 4 years of constantly getting up and showing the world, both our audience and these consumer brands and advertisers and sponsors and folks, and making merchandise that's cool that people want. All that is required to get to where we are today. And for us to get to where we want to be in 3 to 4 years, it's a whole nother, yes, we'll have real capital now to, we won't be living hand to mouth. But even then, the stuff that my team has learned about working with no capital or very little capital compared to our competitors, we're not going to go out and just suddenly unleash the torrent of capital. That makes you a good business person.
Correct.
Because if you have the capital, a lot of times you get lazy. I used to remember going into
you work as if you don't
startups
have.
or yeah. I'd go into a startup or a new agency or whatever. If I went in the bathroom and there was like mouthwash and dental floss and all this stuff, and then you came out to their kitchen area and there was like Kind bars and candy and like a fridge full of like free drinks and all this stuff, and it was a brand new company, I was like, okay, they just got a bunch of money from the VCs and they're going to regret spending on that later. Now, if you're an established company and you're generating revenue and profit, that, you know, like I go to VaynerMedia a lot, they've got that, but they earned it, right? So it's all commensurate to where you're at, where you can start to open the floodgates and spend.
Absolutely. You know, every penny matters. And if you, you know, startups, I agree with you. When you get the money, you still got to be frugal and you got to watch every single penny and you got to, I'm just going to echo what you said, not get lazy. I just want to go back. You're talking about, you know, hustle and actually, you know, the sticky note example, a riddle that I use. So a lot of times when I'm doing keynotes is when I'm talking about this, a similar topic is I'll say, you know, 5 frogs are sitting on a log. 4 decide to jump off. How many frogs are left on the log? You know, and everybody's like, well, wait, will you say that again? So I say it again. And then most of the people say 1, but the answer is 5 because they just decided they didn't take action. And to your point, you know, the haters that you're talking about, what I find is they're just people who don't want to take action or they can't see, they're more one-dimensional and you're a multidimensional type of person. And most entrepreneurs are, right? They can see things. You know, I think in my business as a business coach, I see and hear, I go into companies, I see and hear things that are hidden in plain sight, you know, that they can't see. And so when you look at, you know, your entrepreneurial background, you're the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year in 2012, recognized as one of Goldman Sachs' 100 most intriguing entrepreneurs. You know, so what is the secret today, right? There's no secret, but if you had to give an entrepreneur, and you've mentioned a lot of things, but one thing that they need to consistently do every single day once they have the idea and put it into execution, what is that one thing?
Ask for help.
So brilliant. Yeah.
Because, you know, I love seeing, I mean, I don't love, but it's just funny to me when you see these folks like, I had nothing and I made it. I've asked every family member, every person I've ever met, and, you know, literally, like, you know, anyone I can talk to get them to try when you're in startup mode in particular, when you can take 25 and 50K and you need the seed money, you know, I've asked everyone I know to put money in. Everyone I know that might know someone that knows someone, I've asked, hey, you know someone who did this in media? You think I can talk to him? I still do this. Can I talk? You know, anyone on my cap table, and I've got a lot of great people on my cap table. Rich Antonello founded Complex Media. The guys over at Quality Control, that, you know, Coach K. He's you know, they have all the biggest artists like Cardi B and stuff on their record label. These are all people that I go to for advice, right? And you need to be able to, you need to be willing to look stupid, sound stupid sometimes, and be willing to, because you know, you don't know what you don't know, right? And even now, you know, this is the first business where it's really been a kind of a new sort of media business. You know, I've always had this element of it in other things I've done, even at FaZe Clan, where our model's a little different. And so, you know, just because I'm really good at one thing doesn't mean I'm going to be good at something else. And that's a mistake a lot of people make. They're like, well, I just did this so I can, and, you know, I knocked the cover off the ball. I'm going to go into this field and I'm going to knock the cover. Like you need, it's so much easier to learn from other people's mistakes than your own.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. I think the only thing I'll add to that, Greg, is I think it's really important to surrender to being vulnerable, right? Surrender to being vulnerable. And, you know, you mentioned something like, I'm a big believer, you know, everybody has their kind of one main and then maybe a second and third unique ability. But outside of that, you got to tap into everybody else's, because they see things with different lenses and they hear things differently. And sometimes the smallest piece of advice can shift an entire industry. Yeah. I mean, I think
I've had amazing mentors are so important.
Yeah. I just want to say one thing. It's like, There's no bad decisions. There's just bad assumptions. And one bad assumption can take down a business. When I had my internet company, I'm in Detroit, and so Borders Books was located in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And my brother and I and our buddy, we would go up to Borders, and maybe we just should have been better influencers at the time, but we met with them a small handful of times, trying to convince them and influence them and beg them to get on the internet. And the person we kept on meeting with kept on saying, passing fad, Amazon's not going anywhere. They made one bad assumption. We can point to a lot, Kodak, this, da 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 da. And so what's one bad assumption you made that through asking for help, you were able to pivot?
It's a good question. Well, first of all, I was just in Ann Arbor like 2 weeks ago. I like it. And that the biggest story about that is Xerox, Palo Alto Research Center. They had Apple, they had Microsoft, they had everything, and they were like, "No, we make Xerox machines." So, and they never took it seriously. So they could have had the personal computer.
Yeah.
What is a decision that I made that talking to someone I pivoted or realized? I mean, I could talk about a decision that I made that just comes to mind at when I was at Carmel. We were one of the first e-commerce sites to have a YouTube channel, and we're like, we want to start doing Carmel TV because it's all about a culture. Same thing with gaming. And I was talking to other folks in the industry who are more media focused, and like, you need to have your own player. You got to build your own player. That's what everyone's doing. And by the way, there was two elements of that, because I had a lot of people saying, "What are you doing content for? Your e-commerce site." No one wants to see content on an e-commerce site. I was obviously proved wrong on that one. But so I started embarking on building this player. It's expensive. It was like building our own YouTube, right? But it was going to be on our site, our branding, our features. And I had a guy. This guy goes by the name of Little Internet. That's his name's Julian. And he's super on top of what was happening in evolution of and he's like, "Dude, YouTube has everything and more we want, and it's free." And I'm like, "Well, but doesn't it look like kind of janky that we're using this YouTube thing when we should be showing that we have our own thing, it's all owned by us?" He's like, "Man, I'm telling you." And halfway through, we were spending the money. I listened to him. He was showing me. I'm like, "We're fucking crazy. We got another $50,000 to spend on this thing." He's right. And we just jettisoned the whole thing. We put it on YouTube, saved us tons of time and money, and we could focus on the content. And I didn't see, because everything before that had been owning your own channel, owning your own pipe, cable news, cable TV, broadcast rights. So everyone thought that's how the world was going to continue. But basically where it went was, no, you can get these platforms. They're universal, and it's really about what you put on them, and not about owning the platform or building the platform.
Yeah.
And that was new at the time. And so listening to him was the smartest thing that I had done. When I listened to a number of the folks in the industry who are bigger and more successful in the media part of the industry saying, no, we have our own platform. We have to use this, this company that builds it for us, and we want to customize it, and they can only look at our content, no one else's. And that was just the wrong approach.
Talk to me about, thanks for that. That's a great story. I just want to kind of dig down one more layer. I want to talk about your instincts, right? And decision making, because I think a lot of times people may listen to that story and say, okay, well, what did your instincts tell you was right versus wrong? And how did you ultimately decide what your decision would be? You mentioned asking for help. I think next to asking for help is actually people making a decision. They have a really difficult time to make a decision because there's a conflict with, the left and right brain, what their gut's telling them and what is rational. And so how do you kind of tap into those?
Yeah, there's been a number of times in my career where my instinct's telling me something, but every reasonable, rational sort of standard practice is saying like either you're micromanaging or you need to go this way. I'm a big believer in letting your getting a great team and letting them do what they do. But there's every once in a while I'm like, this just seems wrong. I know they're the expert at
Yeah.
it. It just feels wrong. And there's been a couple times I'm like, look, they know what they're doing. I'm going to leave it alone. And invariably there's a mistake. Something bad happens. What I do is, even if my instinct is like these guys are doing it wrong, I do check other people that can kind of either support it. But I would say generally, like, with that particular example, my initial instinct was the guy doing the YouTube stuff was wrong. The guys who are the leaders of the field who are telling me, no, this is how they're doing it with their media companies. That felt totally right to me.
Yeah.
But there was something in somewhere there where my instinct shifted. I'm like, I'm still listening to these guys, but I really feel like the guys who are 25, 26 years old know what they're talking about. And other than like kind of our own ego of not having our own player, what is it we're doing this for?
Yeah.
Because we feel like we're gonna look like, oh well, we're just using something else. We're not making a serious attempt at media, right?
Yeah.
When the reality was the audience we were after didn't look at using YouTube as not a serious. They're growing up with it. They're saying, yeah, all the media is on YouTube. Whether you control it yourself or other places, that doesn't mean it's better. Doesn't mean it's more professional.
Yeah.
And so I generally think if you have an instinct for something, and I've had my instincts be totally fucking wrong too. Like there's no magic bullet, right? When they tell you in entrepreneurship, well, if you just do this. There's people who have total perseverance, but they're going the wrong direction, and that actually is the end of them.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to check your perseverance. You need that like fundamental belief in yourself and your abilities and your desire to see something in the future and go get it. But you also have to be all along assuming maybe you're doing something wrong. I get up every day and I'm like, what am I doing wrong today?
Yeah.
Right. And
the same way.
But I'm very positive. I don't like it when we're like, what are we doing wrong? And it really sucks. It's like, what are we doing wrong? And let's figure it out. And we're doing a lot of things right. So let's feel good about that at the same time. But it's that one thing you talked about where, where borders didn't see that the whole world was going to go online. I'm trying to think. Someone just told me recently something was a fad that I was like, are you kidding me? AI. Someone told me that, I'm like, AI may be a fad in the fact that, yes, there's going to be a lot of fallout on these companies that try it and don't have a reason for the AI to exist in that. But there's going to be, AI is just beginning. Oh, someone also told me that electric cars are going to go away completely. And I said, look, the reason why that's not true is the combustion engine has not changed in the last 30 years. It's still, it's maybe improved, but it's the same thing. The batteries, there's still lots of issues with electric cars, but it's going to get more. They're going to continue to iterate, and there's going to be a time where you can have an electric car or hydrogen car. There's going to be something else than the combustion engine, that's for sure. But let's say, the only caveat I say is that maybe it's some other technology, but there's going to be another technology.
Yeah.
But with an electric car, very likely there's going to be a time when you can plug it in for 5 minutes and fill up a battery that's a tenth of the size it is now and go drive across the country where you can actually go further than gas. It's just not there yet. So these ideas, a lot of times it's just, there's going to be a lot of if the fundamental thing, let me end with this on this question. The fundamental thing is there's 3 billion people that game. There's going to be 4 billion people that game. Right. They need a lifestyle content hub. They need an XSET. It just didn't exist yet. And even if we don't get it right and the other folks haven't figured out how to make revenue, that's billions of disposable income, billions of people who want to connect around gaming and gaming culture. So if the fundamental belief is there's going to be ways to tap that and provide them value for revenue, that if we stick with it, we still have to pivot. Like for instance, we said we're going to make digital skins as part of our how we do things or how we make revenue. That means everyone said, well, the publishers are never going to work with you. Like they're making billions off of digital skins now, but what the hell do they need you for? And I said, well, we have certain cultural elements we can bring to the table that it's just a long tail effect where they just make more money. Yes, the obvious LeBron James skin is not going to be something we bring to the table. because but there's all these other cultural niches that we touch as well that are going to spend in aggregate the same amount as. So now we've finally cracked the code. We've got an 8-figure deal, frankly, likely will be 8 figures to us, with a major publisher, because we kept at it and we kept saying, and we kind of figured, like, let's get in the front door in with a large star that we work with and are part of their entire sort of world that they're part of. But let's get in and start to show them that, hey, we have these other things we can bring to the table, and net everyone just makes more money, right? But like, so if you see the fundamental equations, very easy. Lots of people, lots of money, figure out how to provide them value, no one else doing it,
Yeah.
then you just got to stay the course. Now, the idea that the AI or even Web3 is going to go away completely is just not. It's there. The approach has been wrong, but
Correct.
the actual what it provides is massive, and you just got to find that path to that revenue or to that audience or to providing value to that group.
Yeah. I love everything you said. When you talk about the path and bringing value and tapping into your instincts and, making a decision, it's interesting. I think people have have a higher level and more of an ability to tap into that than they think. I know, for example, when I'm coaching clients, and, I work with solopreneurs to Fortune companies, et cetera, everything in between, all over the globe. One thing that I do with them, that they have a really hard time doing with themselves, is creating a space where they can get to a place based on questions that I'm asking them that they can't get to on themselves, because they can't slow down. They can't find their pause. They can't find their quiet space. So when they actually pay for coaching, they have no choice, and they put themselves, and then I get them into that space. That being said, we can all do it on our own. We can all do it on our own. And I think creating a sacred 5 or 10 or 15 minutes a day to kind of build that muscle is really, really important for people to tap into it. For guys like you, it comes more intuitively. It comes more naturally as part of your work. But to those who are listening, everybody's running so fast. Just find your pause, find your comma. I think it's really, really important. All right, you ready for
I actually say that to myself every night before I go to bed. That's one of the biggest problems that entrepreneurs have, which is, you have 2 speeds, fast and like insane speed, right?
Yeah, right.
And like, to me, that's been the hardest part. I've made some serious mistakes, like that cost me millions of dollars by being too sure and too quick.
Yeah.
At the same time, if you're too slow and you're too, circumspect and rehashing stuff like those frogs on the log, you're also fucked, right?
Correct.
So
you got to know your cadence and your rhythm. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that insane speed when I need it is amazing, and people are like, "What the hell's going on?" And for me, like, oftentimes it happens in an emergency or a fire, and I get really calm when it's an emergency. That's just luck, I guess, that I was born that way, and that helps me to be able to navigate through stuff that might have killed another business. Right? We've been almost out of business in every business I've been part of. At multiple times, and we kind of figured it out, right?
Yeah. I've been there. Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
But I think having that time, it's the hardest thing to do for entrepreneurs. But I oftentimes say, like, let me take time to pause before I'm going to bed. I have sort of like mantras. It's like prayers, but kind of almost like what would I call it? It's prayers, but it's like secular praying.
Totally.
Right? And I think through stuff, and I ask, to have more patience to do that. And so, having that ability to be able to, I don't have it intrinsically or innately, but I do force myself to take pauses, to ask myself, hey, am I doing again what I did before, which is I'm rushing something through, and that's oftentimes true even when I'm raising capital. I think this one person, if I don't get that person, I'm fucked. If they don't invest and there's been many times where, unfortunately a deal falls apart and I'm like, what am I going to do next? And I'm like, wait a second. The success of this business depends on the people in the business, not just me, all the team. And we'll find some other capital someplace else. And you get yourself back up. But you need to be able to slow down and think it through, or you're going to go into panic mode, or you're going to go into, blinder mode where you're not seeing all the mistakes you're making as you go towards something. It may even be a good idea.
Yeah. And like you said, your routine, I kind of have my end of day wind down routine, my morning routine of meditation and journaling, and, just bookend your day with that. I think it's so important. All right. Quick 30-second speed round, Greg. A book that's had the biggest impact on you.
The Ulysses S. Grant biography by Chernow.
All right. Chernow's, he's great. Best piece of wisdom you've ever received?
To learn from other people's mistakes and let people have it your way.
I love it. Last question, finish this sentence. One thing everybody can do right now to get better at asking for help is?
Just go ahead and do it, even if every fiber in your body is telling you it's going to be embarrassing. Intellectually understand that asking for help is the right thing, and then just force yourself to do it. I mean, that's what I had to do.
Yeah.
A lot of entrepreneurs feel that they're asking for help is a weakness. It's a strength.
Yeah, I agree. Tap into your courage. It overrides confidence. Tell everybody how they can connect with you, who your ideal clients are, learn more about you, etc.
Yeah. So you can follow us on all socials at XSET. So we have that across Twitch, across IG, TikTok, everything. Just our name, XSET. You can go to our website, which is xset.com. You can go to XSET Studios, which is xsetstudios.com. That's our sort of services part of the business where we create content and work with other brands in the gaming space. You can follow me on any platform that I just mentioned other than Twitch. I don't stream, but other than everything else, at Selkoe. And, our ideal partners, I mean, there's two things. We want to make revenue by helping brands reach the gaming audience and do cool stuff, help fund our ability to create culture. While it benefits them, it also benefits us.
Yeah.
And they get to reach a new audience. Most of our revenue comes from that. Advertising in an old parlance, but it's really much more than that. Yeah. And then I would say, any investor looking to reach this audience and looking to build the future, wants to be part of $1 billion media brand, our Series B starts in the next 3 weeks, and our goal is to raise 30 million before the end of the year. Whether we raise it or not, we're still going to be around. It just will mean we'll have to take a longer route. Yeah. We're going to get where we're going. We're going to build $1 billion brand. And, like anyone who just wants advice, I'm always available to, I try to get back to everyone. Sometimes it's a couple months later. If I don't get back to you, it's not because I blew you off. It's because somehow I dropped the ball and hit me again. But you can email me at gregs@xset.com.
I love it. Greg, I love this talk. This was great. I'm a business coach. I work with successful people who are stuck. I get them unstuck. And what I love about this podcast is I get to talk to people who are in alignment with my mission to help people get unstuck. Maybe even those who are afraid to ask for help can learn through the airwaves and get some guidance. And so I love it. I loved everything that you shared today. I just want to extract one thing, which has kind of been a through line of our last couple minutes, which is think community. The importance of asking for help is so critical in growing any business, whether you're a startup, whether you're running a fortune company, a 20, 30, 40, 100 person company, a 20, 30, 40 million dollar company, it doesn't matter. Asking for help on, you said earlier, you're down just a sliver that can actually hurt the company in a big, big way. And so just kind of find your pause, ask for help, and great things will happen. Greg, this was great. You can reach out to Greg at everything he shared. If you want to talk about any coaching, you can reach me at johndwoskin.com. Greg, stay on just a minute. We'll catch up for a second. Thanks so much. This was great. I loved it. Thanks so much.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun. Don't